Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Blake Bettner and I'm in studio today in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Podcasting Studios, in fact, with Josh. There's Josh. Hey, Josh.
How's it going?
All right. In the computer, we've got Ed holding down the fort in Long Island over there. Hey, Ed, how are you?
Pretty all right.
Pretty all right. All right, we'll take it. Limping into the weekend a little bit there.
Getting there.
Into a Halloween weekend, no less. So, and we also have Zach manning Concord up there. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. We were both, all of us, we were all together. Even you, Josh, made an appearance. A couple of days.
Yeah, too.
At the Windup Watch Fair, which was just this past weekend. I hope everybody had a great time. Did you have a good time, Josh?
Fantastic.
It's all right. Yeah. You saw some cool watches?
Yeah. I saw a lot of cool stuff and still managed to not see it all. Somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
Somehow still managed to not see it all.
Yep. That I think is a bit of a trend that we've heard about. We'll get to more of that and more of our thoughts on it. Ed came in for the show. Thanks, Ed. And of course, Zach came down for the show, led a panel. Did some interviews and just talked to a lot of people that came out to the fair. If you were one of those people, thank you for coming. And if you introduced yourself to us, we really appreciate that. We enjoy chatting with you, getting our pictures taken with you. Even somebody stopped me for a picture.
You were a local celebrity.
I was like, wow.
Paparazzi.
Okay, yeah. I can't even walk out of my house now. No. But first, we can talk about a few other things. We can get into a wrist check, though. Wrist check, is that still okay thing to say? What watches are we wearing on our wrist today? I guess. Josh, what are you wearing over there?
I've got the Worn and Wound Seiko 5 on a...
what is that strap?
It is what I thought was going to be red, more reddish, but it's an orange, like racer strap.
It's straight up orange racer. Yeah. It looks cool, though. I think it works.
It somehow works, and not what I wanted, but not disappointed, though, either.
Yeah. All right.
So,
well, just an excuse to get another
strap. Exactly.
Strap. You never have too many straps. Right. Zach Kazan, what do you got on your wrist?
I'm wearing a watch that I have in for review currently. It's the new Laurier Zephyr.
Laurier Zephyr. They were at Windup, of course, and the Zephyr, a very distinctive watch of theirs. This is the one that kind of gets away from the kind of vintage sport watch styling and goes more into like kind of Art Deco formal a bit.
Yeah, this is kind of, that's exactly it. It's kind of like a jazz age dress watch. I think that's sort of how they describe it. It's has a tonneau shaped case, kind of like an elongated case shape. It's quite beautiful. It has a really nice like little gear shaped pattern on the dial, and it's very like kind of like discreet and easy to wear. And I'm looking forward to writing it up. You'll see it on the website in probably like 2-3 weeks or so. Cool.
Yeah, excited about that. Does it feel like a Laurier?
It doesnh feel like their previous watches because it's kind of very unlike they're kind of like more sports watch style watches, but it does feel true to them. Like if you've met them and talked to them at a Windup Fair, for example, I think this watch makes a lot of sense, even if it doesn't share a lot aesthetically with previous watches that they've made.
Okay, right on. Yeah, it's a very cool looking watch for sure. And of course, we love the people from Laurier. We had them on the podcast, Lauren and Lorenzo, not too long ago, so we'll put a link to that down below. Ed, what do you got on today?
I have the Seiko Safarni SNJ029
okay.
on a nice little crown and buckle strap that I think matches really nicely. It's I think the Tundra color. It's got like some gray and tan in there.
Yeah, it looks like a matte Supreme.
Yeah, it's a matte Supreme.
Very cool. I love that. Those straps. Yeah. Those watches can do no wrong for sure. You know what I did for the other day on mine? For the first time, I took the shroud off.
Oh, okay.
So, which was interesting. It's it's like a normal watch. Well, not normal watch, but it's like a normal case underneath there, and then it's got the holes for the hex screws to hold the shroud to it. Someone was wondering if it was like a resin or like a metal or ceramic or something like that. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's like a plastic type
What is it?
situation. But there's a seam along the underside that looks like it, came out of a mold, and it's very, very like it's like a resin or plastic. But I don't know if they're all like that. I think some of the references have steel ones, or like coated steel ones, or something like that.
What made you want to pop?
There was
it
a
open?
guy, I forgot what, somewhere on the internet that was making them out of like bronze or something.
Oh,
And
that'd be cool.
there was an offer to send one along, but I declined for whatever reason. Yeah, somebody was making their own shrouds. I was like,
Interesting.
Very
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, I guess you
it's not
could put
super complex. You could
scan
figure
it
something out.
and 3D print them,
Yeah,
or
that's what I
do
was thinking.
whatever, however they do that. Put it in the machine in the little CAD.
Yeah, kind of surprised I haven't seen a mod on that yet.
Yeah, with crazy ones.
It'd be a fun mod.
Somebody had asked online somewhere, and it got me like curious. Because it's hard to tell. You tap it, and but when you take it off, it's like light as a feather, and it feels like resiny or plasticky or whatever. But don't. It's not all of them that are like that. So don't. It's just Ed and I have the same Safarni models, just different colorways of them. The Street series, I think they're called. SNJ 029 and 031, I think, are the numbers there. Very cool watches, regardless, though. So that's that mystery solved. I'm wearing a sub, of course. Well, not of course. I haven't worn it in a while.
Of course.
I say that. I don't. It's probably been maybe a year since I've had this up
it's been a while
on
since
the podcast. Like I pop it on every now and then. I don't really post it or talk about it because it's kind of met with a bunch of eye rolls all the time. But you know what? I don't care. I like wearing it. So deal with it.
Hey, this is Kyle Snart, Worn and Wound. I'm here today with Jason Heaton. Thank you so much, Jason, for contributing to our latest edition of Toolkit. Toolkit is obviously our partnership series where we pair watches with gear and go on an adventure. And thank you for taking the helm on one of these editions.
Oh, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. I feel like at heart, for me, watches are gear, and that's how I've always seen them and treated them, and so this was kind of a natural extension of that.
Cool, awesome. So, real quick, just for our listeners who may not know you yet, can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Jason Heaton. I've kind of written about outdoor gear and adventure travel and watches for, over 10 years now for a number of publications, including Gear Patrol and Hodinkee and Revolution Magazine and Outside and Men's Journal and a few others. And then for the past, I guess it's been about 6 years, I've been the co-host of a fairly popular podcast called The Grey NATO, and author of a adventure thriller novel. And I've just done a number of freelance projects over the years. So yeah, kind of wear a few different hats, but it all kind of revolves around the same subject matter.
Awesome. Thank you for that quick introduction. And yeah, I've been a big reader and listener, as a lot of us here at Worn and Wound have been. So we're honored that you could join us with this particular project. So obviously for this latest edition of Toolkit, our friends at Citizen armed you and your wife with 2 ProMaster divers. You are a diver, and you took these and got them wet. Can you tell us a little bit about what you had on wrist and where you went with them?
Yeah. So we had 2 watches. Gashani is my wife, and she's also a diver and photographer. And we've done a number of kind of dive watch review projects over the years, and I've had my share of Citizens on my wrists, but it was fun to take these 2 down to Bonaire in the Southern Caribbean. I was wearing we were there for 2 weeks, and for most of that time, I had on the Citizen ProMaster. It was an automatic diver that has the nickname Fujitsubo, which is Japanese for barnacle. It was named after a watch that Citizen made back in the 70s that had washed up on a beach, an example of which had washed up on a beach in Australia and was found covered with kind of a crust of sea life. And so it was given this nickname Fujitsubo, which means barnacle in Japanese. And then Gashani was wearing another nicknamed Citizen watch, a ProMaster EcoDive diver, nicknamed the Orca. And that's also a reissued watch from Citizen's past, a more recent past. It's a watch that was made, I believe, in kind of the early 2000s that has a very distinctive case shape, but also the markings on the dial and the bezel have these sort of scalloped or rounded black and white and blue and white markings that resembled those of an orca. So it's always been given that nickname. So she was wearing that one for the week, or for both weeks, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And I've been really fortunate to already read your article and see the amazing pictures that Gashani took. And you took some yourself. And you talk about this idea of reef combing. Can you give us just a quick background on that style of diving?
Yeah, it's a term that's not used much anymore. Just like the term, if you've heard the term skin diving, it just feels old fashioned to say I'm going skin diving or I'm going reef combing. And reef combing has this very nostalgic, old fashioned sound to it, a bit romantic. You picture like a kind of a paperback book on techniques for reef combing or something like that, written by some long lost professor in the 1960s. And the idea is that reef combing kind of is a term that separates a certain kind of scuba diving that is separate from, say, deep shipwreck diving or cave diving or diving under the ice or, anything that involves a higher level of risk or ambition. And it's just, you strap a tank on your back, pull your mask on and your fins and kind of just wade into the ocean and kick around for an hour and see what you can see in shallow, usually warm water. And that term has always stuck with me. My wife is from Sri Lanka, and there's one of the original old beach hotels there was called the Reef Comber. And I always liked the sound of that term. In fact, I should plant my flag here on the podcast and say, that I hereby reserve that name for a future dive watch. I think that'd be a great name for a dive watch, the Reef Comber.
Or a novel.
Or a novel. There we go. Yeah, the Reef Comber's Guide to Life or something. It's just, there's nothing scientific about reef combing or, there's no military angle to it or anything. It's just diving for the sake. It's like going out for a nice hike in the woods with no particular ambition in mind, no peak to bag or particular photos to take or anything like that. You're just out to see what you can find. And that's kind of the gist of what I think of when I think of reef combing.
Well, it's a great piece, and I really enjoyed reading it. I'm excited for our readers to check it out. It's live today on the Worn and Wound website. And, as they're going through it, anything special they should be looking for along the way?
Well, there's a little bit of an Easter egg in one of the photos I told you about. It's funny, we were taking some topside photos, kind of lay flat watch shots, as we call them. There's kind of where you're sort of displaying the watches with dive gear. And a certain organism crept its way into the photo, and it's quite small, and it's in there. So people will have to look through the photos to see if they can find out what it is. We certainly saw a lot of critters underwater. We saw lobsters and eels and squid and fish and turtles, but this one was lying right there on our balcony when we were taking some of these photos. So you'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Awesome, will do. Thank you so much, Jason, and we'll catch you again next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Did all of us get watches at Windup? Did anybody get a watch?
Did not.
I did not.
What?
I did not as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, here I thought the whole show was going to be about us talking about the watches that we picked up.
I got
Some of us are there to work and not shop, Blake.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. That's true. I'll take that.
I had a lot of people pressuring me to get a watch while I was there. Just a few people I happened
Not me, though, right?
Yeah, not you.
Okay.
Not you. Just a couple of good guys that I know at a particular watch blog website. For me, I really wanted to do some scouting for what I want to get.
Yeah.
Probably at the end of holiday season, and also I have a lot of dental work, very expensive dental work that I need to have done.
Okay.
So I figured I've been putting that off for the better part of a decade. So might as well get that done.
So you're making the responsible choice.
Unfortunately, it's really boring and it sucks, but yeah.
All right. Well, that's acceptable. No, I think Windup is a great venue to, even if you're not going to make a purchase, to just see a lot of different watches that you don't often get an opportunity to see and go hands-on with. So yeah, I think that makes a lasting impression. So over the course of the next year or months or years even, like you have that impression of those people or the quality of the watch or the design that you liked, and maybe their next release, or when you have all your dental work covered and and you've got some disposable income, you can make that move. I think a lot of people use it as that kind of
because it's tough. You're not most of the watches that I'm interested in are from micro brands, and you're not going to be able to unless you know somebody that has that specific watch you're looking for. Like you're not going to be able to try that thing on.
Yeah, exactly. So you were close, or you thought you were like okay.
So I was close on one watch in particular,
okay.
but I decided to hold off.
All right, it's all right.
Yes.
You keep your secrets over there. You don't have to say it. Zach, what about you? Anything you find tempting?
There's so much that was tempting. I mean, that was part of the problem, was that like it's just like analysis paralysis. Like I would have loved to pick something up, but there's just there's just so much to choose from. I kind of need to like take a step back and just kind of like think about what I actually might want to own. But there are a lot of standouts. I mean, the thing that like immediately jumps to mind is the Fears watches, their new watch on a bracelet. Like for me, that's kind of the hit of the show. I love that watch. I thought it was really well executed, especially the blue dial. They introduced a pink dial, which is a new color for them, which was quite nice too. But yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff at the show. I tried on as much as I could and still like couldn't get through everything, probably because there were just so many brands and so many watches to see.
Yeah, it's tough. Everybody that was there that that I've asked about it, most of them had mentioned Fears, and of course Nicholas was there, the fourth managing director of Fears, who's just a really incredible guy, very very kind,
wonderful
and
to talk
engaging
to.
with everybody that came through. So, I think he makes a great impression on a lot of people, and the watches themselves are very distinctive. And before we hopped on a recording, you were telling me about a Fears watch that had caught your eye as well. They definitely make an impression in the like small kind of details that you pick up when you hold them in the hand. It's really beautiful work that they're doing there. So, Ed, what about you?
I did not pick anything up, but when you're there, you kind of pick everything up. You touch it, you feel it, and you talk about it. Like what you guys were saying before, like even if you're not there, with a loaded wallet with intent to buy, like they're not brands that you can just pop into the mall and check out. It goes a long way to see the watches and talk to the people who are more than likely the ones who are designing it or who own the brand, which is a very unique experience. But yeah, if anything jumped out, I mean, I was impressed by Formex. They had like a crowd at their table pretty much the whole weekend. There's just so much, and it's all fun, and it's all very much in the worn and wound, universe. So it's cool. It's a cool vibe.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I'm glad you mentioned Formex. I actually bought 2 watches at the show, and I didn't really go into it planning to buy any watches. It wasn't a goal of mine or anything. But the Formex guys, they never have a watch to sell me. So like the last few shows, I always end up giving them a bunch of trouble because I go over there, I'd be like, oh, this is really interesting. And, do you have one of these? Are you selling these things? And it's like, no, you go onto the site and I don't want to do all that stuff. And I forget about it or whatever. This show, they made a point to tell me before the show started, we brought some watches. We brought a watch for you to buy if you want to buy one. So, I talk about them on the podcast like from time to time, and I felt it was time to maybe kind of put my money where my mouth is there and walk the walk. So I bought one of the Essence Legeras with the gray dial, and it's the carbon ceramic case, and it's got the carbon clasp, and it's got the case with the suspension in it, so it's got the springs in there. The whole thing kind of moves within the center part of the case. It
was really cool.
It's so cool.
It's really, really cool.
And it's so that it's got this like sailcloth-ish kind of canvasy strap that's gray, and then the dial is gray. And Raphael was telling me that was based on Nardo gray, which is gray that like Ferrari uses, and I think it's a PTS color for Porsche as well. very distinctive, kind of like deep, rich gray. And even the date disc is done in the same color. And then the printing of the numerals on the date disc is black, so it's all has this like kind of uniform gray look. The watch weighs like nothing though. It's crazy. It's really cool, fun on the wrist. It's got this adjustment system in the buckle or in the
yeah,
clasp.
That thing was crazy. I was like, I don't.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's really
you put the the posts in the hole in the strap, and then it's those posts that are on like a slide inside of the clasp. So you can press one button on the clasp while it's on your wrist and adjust and make the adjustments up to 5 or 6 millimeters or whatever it is. So. It's one of those things that you take it off and look at it, and you're like, oh, why is this the first time I'm seeing this? It's like one of those like obvious salute. You're like, oh, of course.
Never seen anything like it, though.
A lot of brands should have this stuff. And, of course, the Formex are they manufacture parts and components, cases, bracelets and stuff for a lot of other brands. Some even... quite impressive and large brands, I will say. So, I think like Ed said, they've always got a crowd around them. I think there's like a general curiosity about them, but they're watches that when you see and you like play with and you hold, and they leave a real impression on you. And I've always kind of been of the mind that like, aesthetically, I think they're still kind of like laying that groundwork, and maybe like the visuals of the brand aren't exactly right up my alley, but I think the watches itself and like what it is, it's something that I can really get behind. So that was one of the watches that I bought, and we'll do some type of owner's review at some time down the line there. So Formex Essence Leggera. Carbon
that's a cool
ceramic.
pickup. I'm glad they finally brought a watch for you to buy. That's been
exactly.
Yeah, they pressured you.
They did, yes. Yeah, well, and it was before the show started or anything, so I'm just standing there like I don't want, And it's fine. Like I like supporting those guys, and I've been like really curious about that brand for a long time. So of course I'm happy to have one. And now when I talk to people about it, I can grab one out of the box and show them. So, and then the other watch was a total shock to me. So Eric Wind is there this year. He was at the fair. He brought a lot of his vintage watches. Wares, he brought some really cool watches, old like dress watches, sport watches, pocket watches, like yacht timer, pocket watch. I mean, just really, really cool, eclectic stuff, as usual. Some great Omegas and, the usual slew of Rolexes that you see, but just really interesting stuff kind of between the like tentpole stuff that I think is always like really fun to discover. And one of the watches that he had in his case, when I went up on Sunday, I kind of dragged myself upstairs from the panels and all that kind of stuff downstairs, and to my surprise, there was a watch sitting there that I've only seen in the flesh 2 other times in my life. One of them I owned and sold back probably 10 years ago. It's a DMH, and it's a Dutch guy. His name is Fred Dingemus, and he builds these in like a shed in his backyard. He takes these old jump hour movements and restores them, and then machines a case and dial parts and this really kind of trick crown system that sticks up off the case at like 2 o'clock that has a locking mechanism. Very obscure. He doesn't make many of these because it's like just him, So anyway, so I sold mine in a Hodinkee pop-up, again 8 or 10 years ago or something like that, and I haven't seen one since. And there was one sitting in his case, and I was completely shocked. I was like, Eric, where'd you get this? He had it on consignment, I think, from somebody, so he put me in touch with him, and I immediately took it out of the case and had to have it because. And if you contact the guy now, it's like 4 or 5 years to get a watch made for you. I don't know if many people knew the brand or recognized it, or it's not a brand that you really see written about or talked about much. I wrote about them for Hodinkee a long, long time ago, and kind of kicked off the whole like, oh, this is kind of a cool thing, and people would order them and do the weight thing, but. I get the sense he's not the type that wants like a bunch of that kind of attention on him just because he wants to go at his own pace and have his own quality of life, which I completely respect. So,
but he is still making watches. You said like
as far as I understand, he is. I'm going to reach out to him now that I have this. I had a guy put a different strap on it while I was there. Kind of a green suede. I'm just starting to kind of like dig into it. I'm going to go into it with the owner the previous owner that I bought it from, and try to kind of track down the full details on it. Very unusual watch. It's a couple of like visible discs. So there's a minute disc, and then there's the jump hour disc that jumps. It's a little tricky to like read at a glance. You kind of got to get your bearings on what's going on in the dial to make a read. But it's very interesting. I was really, really excited.
Yeah, but jump hours are cool.
Yeah, definitely a fan of the jump hours and a fan of this watch, and surprised that it was just sitting there for me to buy at what I thought was a pretty reasonable price. So, thank you to Eric, and thank you to the previous owner for putting one out there. So. That was the surprise of the show for me. Anything that you guys saw that surprised you? Any brands that you didn't recognize there, that you discovered for the first time there? Any watches that you saw for the first time there?
Probably those. You can go, Zach.
Oh no, go ahead, Ed, please.
Okay. Those Jack Mason guys. They have that new GMT coming out that they were pretty psyched on, and we saw them at the Watch Crunch meetup.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them before, and like it was kind of interesting that they have like a storefront office situation in Dallas. So if you're a Dallas person, kind of an interesting presentation of a smaller brand. And I think it's a jump hour, right? Like that was like the thing that they were.
Well, it's a
not jump hour. It's
a true GMT.
True GMT.
We should stop saying the true GMT. Do you think?
Yeah.
Should we, like it's a caller, a traveler. We can just say like this is a traveler GMT, right? So that means
the main hour hand moves and the
local
GMT
hour hand. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Stays. That was pretty sharp looking. I had never really heard of them before, and I just thought that they were taking an interesting approach to kind of getting themselves out there with the storefront and like kind of like making the whole thing like an experience versus just like buying some Kickstarter or here's our website, which works too, but just a different approach was kind of interesting to see, and they were nice dudes.
Yeah, very cool guys.
There.
That was a cool watch. I mean, it had the black or not the black. It was maybe they had a black and red bezel, and there's also a red and blue bezel
with a blue dial.
And then like kind of a beads of rice-ish bracelet and like a box sapphire. But it was the first, and it's like just under $1,000, by the way, and it's using that what is it? That Miyota move, that new Miyota movement.
Yep.
That you've written about this, right, Zach?
Yeah. So Bulova was the first out of the gate to use that movement, and Boulder just recently released a watch in a very different style, kind of like a hulking tool watch kind of thing. Very very Boulder. With that movement, but it's a local jump hour GMT movement, which is kind of like the holy grail for these brands, and that kind of like $1,000 price point. I feel like 3 years ago this is like what everybody wanted, and now we're starting to see watches pop up with that movement. That hopefully we'll see them in a range of styles going forward too.
Yeah, and that's maybe the big takeaway, right, from that. I mean, the Jack Mason was certainly handsome, and the guys were great. But seeing that movement start to trickle out into new watches, I think is something that like keep your eye out if you're into that kind of thing, or if you've been looking for one of those, and hopefully it'll land in one that is to your liking. So and two of the guys that were at their booth were like big mechanical keyboard enthusiasts, so we got to nerd out about like keyboard switches and all that kind of stuff. So
when are we going to have a keyboard switch brand at Windup exhibit?
That is, what there is there's actually a brand that's based in New York that does this stuff. I think they would be a great get there.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? Maybe we can start our own like mechanical keyboard podcast.
Why not?
One of these times. There are weirder things to have podcasts about.
There are much weirder things. much weirder things. The stories I could tell.
Ed's into that game too, aren't you, Ed?
I'm in the game. Yeah, I'm not as far in the game as you might be, but I've definitely dabbled more than the average typer.
You dabble, yeah. It's a slippery slope. I tell you what. And
Yeah.
like if you stop and think about it, it's like the one thing that you're using and sitting in front of like almost all day, every day. Like it should be nice.
It should be nice.
Yeah, something
It makes a big difference.
Something
Once
that brings you
find-
joy.
Right.
So, yeah. Zach, when are you going to?
That's why we're here.
Yeah, Zach, when are you going to get in on this?
Now I don't know. Like I'm open minded. I'm always looking for new rabbit holes to fall down. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's cool. Before you know it, you'll have your own like soldering station, and you'll learn how to like program to customize the layout of the. It's a whole other world, but it's fun.
I need like a winter hobby. I think so. Like
coding and soldering. There you go.
Yeah, that could be it.
There you go. All right, so Ed found the Jack Mason guys. What about you, Kazan?
So there was one brand that kind of stuck out to me that I was not familiar with. Coming into this Windup Fair, that I had the pleasure of getting to know the brand owner a little bit, and that's the Abington Company. I did a little sponsored video content with Abington, the founder of the brand, named after herself. It was just a lovely woman who has built up a real a really strong like fan base around her watches, and she makes these sports watches and tool watches that she markets very aggressively towards women, and so the watches have a very kind of distinct look to them. She's been in business for 15 years, which like shocked me because I've been around watches for quite a while, and this brand just never kind of like fell on my radar. But it's because she's been exhibiting her watches and like going out to like aviation shows and places like that, and like meeting pilots and other people who kind of like do the types of activities that she's into. Like she's a scuba diver, and she races cars, and very
and
impressive person. Yeah, and she's a pilot, and so she's been kind of meeting people, in those spaces rather than going to like watch enthusiast events, and she's had a lot of success doing that. And I just found her story really, really fascinating, and it made me wonder what other brands I might be completely missing, that are just totally not on my radar. But she apparently had a really successful show and sold a bunch of watches, and she brought like almost 40 different, like distinct,
like SKUs,
references, to the show, which is just a massive number. And so that's a brand that kind of sticks out to me as one that was not, remotely on my radar, beforehand. But they're out there, and I assume there are other brands out there that, are kind of like out there to discover, which is exciting.
Yeah, she was on a panel that I moderated, and I was really intrigued by her and her story as well. And it a bit felt like almost silly talking to her as like a watch enthusiast, because here she's like doing her thing and like making these watches for the needs of this like specific group of people that they are built for and marketed towards, in a way, like other pilots and other scuba divers, and so she's like kind of at that nexus. We all talk about like the specs of these things and what they can do and the genres and all this kind of stuff, and she's like kind of on the other side of it, just like cutting out all the like BS and just going talking directly to the people that are using them and making watches. And then she's at where the fairs that these people are at. Famously, a lot of watch enthusiasts aren't divers and pilots and all this kind of stuff, but like, no, she finds the people that are actually those things, and is in those spaces with them, which I'm just like,
that's a cool story.
And she was amazing. She was very pleasant. Really happy to have her. And this was like the first watch show, like you said, that she was at. So it was almost like, I don't know if she was aware of like this whole world of like kind of watch enthusiasts, and we weren't aware of her whole situation, so it was kind of like these things coming together in a really cool way, and kind of building awareness for us towards something that she's doing, which I think is really awesome. So
for sure,
we'll have those panels that a few of us moderated up on our YouTube channel and up on the site at some point in the near future here. So keep an eye out for those if you care to listen to them. That one was finding niche audiences. I think Zach, you did a great one on heritage brands.
Yeah, I did a panel on heritage brands with Mike Pearson from Zodiac and RT Custer from Vortic and Don Cochran from Vertex. We're all on that panel. Really interesting panel. That the panels were a great addition this year. I thought I loved that there was some some kind of like counter programming to like just going from booth to booth upstairs. You could kind of dip into a panel if you wanted. I thought that was a really smart addition. I hope we continue to do that because I think there's a lot of discussions to be had with folks from these brands and potentially other people in the watch community getting involved. I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, the discussion that you led was really interesting as well. That was a great group of people there. I mean, I'm always intrigued by RT when he starts talking about his brand as well and what he's doing. It was fun to lead these things, and selfishly, it's kind of fun for us to engage in a dialogue with some of these people, and not grill them on what they're doing, but just kind of like learn more and get further context and get to respond to other exhibitors as well, other brands. I did a British Invasion one as well with that was a handful of the British brands that were there, which was really fun. I missed that, but I wanted to. But like that was, I'm sitting there just like, oh, this is so interesting, like just listening to them. But and again, all of these will be up, so you'll be able to hear them in their entirety if you want. What about you? Anything surprising that you came across? Any brand that you had never heard of that you thought?
There was a lot, and this is going to be pretty hard to narrow this down. I think probably the one that's top of mind for sure was, and I saw them last year, but was the Solabs, the Layer 2.
Yeah.
That I was not, I wasn't prepared for that, and
I wasn't prepared. It was anybody.
I was just like, oh yeah, I remember these guys from last year, and then I saw them sitting there. I was just like, wait, whoa, what?
Yeah.
And I picked up the, I don't know how you would choose between like the fully polished one or the black one, like
the black one. All those colors pop right off of there, beautifully.
I was just like, this is. I mean, when I saw because they had the other ones were like fully acrylic or something like that, or
the layer ones,
which I thought were cool. Which I thought were cool. Like, and it finally dawned on me, like I didn't really see what the design was, understand what it was until I saw it this year, and I was like, oh, that's the movement. Like it's I was like, I didn't understand that was the design, and I was like, when that clicked for me while also seeing this new Layer 2, I was like, oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, they look like they belong in like the Museum of Modern Art, or something like that. And the Layer 2s have an even like additional layer to discover of detail, because they
also have the little inner.
It's the day and the date disc that have been repurposed. So the whole the day disc and the date disc are like just these a gradient of colors, and they're fully exposed in the top half of the dial. So like as the day and the date change, those discs shift to a slightly different hue.
So there's no date on it. It's just as if you were turning it, that's cool. I didn't notice that.
So throughout the month, it's gonna look appreciably different.
Oh, that makes it even cooler.
So it's a bit like a mood ring that will subtly change colors or something like that. But this is like one of the most inventive uses I've seen of a day of like a phantom position day and date, which is what I thought it was. When I first had it, I took the thing out to set it, and I noticed that. I was like, oh, the date thing's still in there. That happens from time to time, not the end of the world. And then I realized what was happening on the dial as I started to move them. You don't really notice, but if you do it like 5, 6, 7, 10 times, it like totally changes to a different color.
I did not pick
Do they
up
highlight that as a feature, or is that just kind of like an Easter egg that you?
I don't know if they do or not.
That's really cool though.
And there's another one too. The running seconds hand is on the cap of the hand stack.
I picked up on that.
It's just a tiny little point that moves.
That reminded me of like the Isotope watches, because they have that one.
It's almost like it's like one of the it's a running indication, right? Like, oh, the watch is running type of situation. But these things are just crazy. One of my favorite, most creative, inventive uses of these things that I've seen. Other than actually displaying a day and a date, which arguably might be more useful, but it's just more beautiful this way. These I love these things.
Yeah, they're great. Really, just like super fun. And I reviewed their original watch, like the which was made of plastic and had like a cool look to it, but was like still very much, you could tell it was like first effort. So there's just like a ton of growth between that first quartz watch and these mechanical watches. They're just so much more refined. Like it feels like a real watch. Not that the other one wasn't like a real watch, but like so much thought went into it. It's really nice.
I have a question in regards to that too. Is like, did they make that? Because I don't know about other watch brands doing this, but like, did they make that first watch to sort of fund what they really wanted to do, you think, for the second watch?
I think this was just like a vision, like a creative vision that they had that they wanted to get out there, like as a design. But it's the sister brand of Astor and Banks.
Oh, really?
So based in Chicago. So that's like its own thing, like up, and that does great as far as I know. I love the Astor and Banks watches, and it's him and like this other guy that collaborate and do these. It's like I don't want to say like side project, but it's.
I wouldn't have guessed that
under
at all.
the same like umbrella.
I think they're just buddies, right? And they each have their own project, and they kind of help each other out. I think. I don't want to
maybe
misstate it, but
we'll have to. Well, we need to get Andrew on the podcast. We've had some small discussions with him back in Chicago that was on a podcast, but he's such a great guy and really interesting dude to talk to. So we'll let's put a pin in that. We'll get him on the pod and we'll get to the bottom of this situation. Yeah, no, great call out there. And that watch launched the day of the opening of the fair. So we'll have a link to those watches down below. I think there's 5 different variations. It's like it's like a whole color palette that gets put into the dial there. So it's not like 1 or 2. It's a whole like mood.
That thing was it just immediately. I mean, it catches your eye, obviously, and
You know what I was thinking? It dawned on me when I was looking at the Zenith DeFi Extreme, the Pantone watch, because they just released another one of these Pantone, Felipe Pantone watches in the DeFi Extreme line. The first one was the 21, I think the DeFi 21. Right. So this guy is an artist, Argentinian, I believe, artist that works in all of these colors. And I was like, this is like doing something similar to that Solabs. He has these like radial prints of colors that kind of like go out in these, like that would have been an awesome addition to a watch like that to use instead of the date. But I
bet if Solabs did it, it wouldn't cost like $30,000 or whatever.
That's
Pantone,
that's
which
true.
is very cool.
Of course, the underpinnings of the Zenith are also a rather impressive.
I mean that watch is quite a bit more complicated, and
there's
a lot going on there.
It's a 100th of a second timer, so it actually has its own escapement for the chronograph timer. So if you start at the timing seconds hand makes a whole lap of the dial in 1 second, which on a normal chronograph obviously it takes 60 seconds to make a full lap. So the totalizer is like a second totalizer and then a minute totalizer instead of a minute and an hour totalizer. Kind of crazy. I don't know what I would use that for, let alone have fast enough reaction time to get the most out of it. But boy, it sure looks cool. And this one is interesting because it has the DeFi case, so it's got like layers of. It's not sapphire. It's like this synthetic material that's like translucent blue, and all the crazy colors of the Pantone. I mean, it's a cool looking watch for sure, and it comes on this neat rubber strap, and it's got this great Velcro option. So I'm a sucker for all that kind of stuff. It's just one of those like ridiculous, and much like the first Pantone watch that they did. I don't. It's not appealing to me that like I want to like have it and wear it every day, but I just love it as a beautiful object. It's like a work of art, I don't know. I had a chance to see that watch in the flesh in Green Bay. I was with Zenith in Green Bay to see a Packer game just the weekend prior to Windup. and got to see a few of their new watches, some of which I cannot talk about yet, but will be coming within the next few months. But this was one of them that was there that it was just really fun to go hands-on with. I also got to meet Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, wow.
In Green Bay. He is a spokesperson for Zenith. This is the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Quite successful as well. Very nice guy. He was wearing a Chronomaster Sport with a black dial. He seems really into Zenith. I know he's supposed to say that. That's part of the deal. My kind of recap of the experience is live on the site now, so we'll link that down below.
Was he rocking his Nicolas Cage hair?
He had a beanie on.
Okay.
So, but he had a look. Very cool. Very cool. Very, very kind person. We chatted for a little bit. He seemed really taken. Like, he was in Lalac, where the manufacturer of Zenith is located, and spent like a week there. Like, went hiking with some of the people and touring the facilities. And the stories that I heard from like the people that I didn't have like scheduled sit down time with kind of painted a clear picture of him than I got from like sitting down with people that I was supposed to interview, as is usually the case. Right?
He's an interesting character.
Yes,
very, very interesting guy.
Yes, he is. Very, very, very attuned. I will say with the world around him. I think very pleasant though. Really, really interesting to talk to. He seems like one of those guys that like I see this quality in watch collectors. Like, they're observant and they like notice little details, and like if you get into something, you get into it kind of deep and you like start to learn a lot about it. Like, he seems like that kind of a guy. And the more we started talking about watches, the more he started opening, like, he went into the history of Zen. Again, like, it's hard to suss out well, of course, like, it's his responsibility to like say this stuff versus like what does he actually think about it. So yeah, I can't make that judgment.
You got a sense from him though that he was, at least as brand ambassadors go, he seemed pretty genuine and authentic.
Yes, that was my sense. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt that he's a brand ambassador, but that was my impression of him. Like, how he talked about the watches. Like, he certainly seemed to pick up a lot of the language, a lot of the history there, a lot of like watch nerd jargon type stuff, and like how I felt like he could hold his own in a conversation with like watch nerds.
So he's either a watch nerd or a really good brand ambassador.
Or really good brand ambassador, yeah.
Yeah, he might just be very good at being a brand ambassador.
Respect either way, that's it's cool. But he's got all the money in the world. He's had all the success, and like what does he have left to prove? Like,
Exactly.
I imagine he does this stuff only if he finds it interesting. But I had the sense that he really liked the people there, and that was kind of like the biggest thing. For him, but he referenced like other watches using the El Primero and the whole Charles Vermat story.
Vermont, I think, yeah.
About him, saving the movement and little components, talking with some of the engineers and watchmakers that work within the manufacturer there, like. Other people told me, they had to kind of like move him along because he wanted to like stay and really take in what they were doing on like, a bridge or a jewel or something like that. So instead of just kind of like him just walking in a line of the group, like he really actively got into like wanting to understand all this stuff. So anyways, pretty cool stuff. Again, very nice guy. He likes the white dial version of the Chronomaster Sport, but he couldn't. He had been in London the week prior for the game against the Giants, and he couldn't find it. He hadn't been able to locate it yet in his luggage. So
I hate it when you misplace your Chronomaster Sport. It's the worst.
So then you have to default to your other dial.
You have to go for the backup
version,
Sport, which is just like
look. We've all been there.
Embarrassing.
We've all been there, right?
Problems to have. Problems we
I have a
all
question
know.
about your Green Bay trip, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So, as far as the cuisine that you were served, by Zenith on this trip in the Midwest, the heart of the Midwest, the heart of like Midwest football culture, how many dishes had cheese curds involved in them? And how many did not?
I tell you, probably not enough. They did this tailgate before the game in a very nice heated tent with a bartender making Bloody Marys and oysters being served, and they had a thing with like brats and onions and stuff like that, normal stuff, but definitely not the harrowing experience of a normal Wisconsin tailgate. I'll just say that. They had, like a bowl of cheese curds and stuff like that out, which were good, but I kept telling people, like, to properly experience like a Wisconsin cheese curd, you got to go to like a local farmer's market and get them from the people that are making them, and then the temperature has to be just right of the cheese curd, and then you get that like squeak, and then you get like the full chease like
squeak.
It's very important to the
squeak. I've never heard that before.
They squeak. They got to squeak. Yeah. Well, they don't got it. I mean, they can still be good or whatever. But this happens like at a certain temp. It's not like room temp, but it's not super cold. It's like somewhere in between. Just Wisconsin things. But the Bloody Marys had like, sausage sticks coming out of them in the full. It was a very like Wisconsin.
I saw the photos. That's what I posting of the Bloody Marys. It made me very jealous that I was not.
And they were delicious.
Involved in that. Looked great.
I love a good Bloody Mary. Of course, it was like 9:30 in the morning, but
that's the perfect time.
Best time to have a Bloody Mary.
It's tailgating before a football game, so what else do you do? Eat brats and drink Bloody Marys. So, unfortunately, the Packers lost that game. I can say I'm from Wisconsin, so I can say like I try to separate my personal feelings on the Packers from writing about this experience. But look, it's a pie. I was bummed they lost. Okay, and they lost the New York Giants.
They're having a rough season.
They're having a rough patch right now. Okay, it's just a patch. Okay, let's not say the whole season just yet. So, no, but thank you to Zenith for having us out there. And again, we'll have more on those watches coming soon. All right, we are wrapping up. We are going into a Halloween weekend. Zach doesn't do the Halloween stuff. You have no Halloween party plans, Zach? You don't have an outfit picked out.
I strongly dislike Halloween.
Okay.
I've never liked Halloween.
What about this? Are you at least? Do you like put a small bowl of candy outside of your door, and maybe a sign that says like "Just take it, don't knock"?
So I live in an apartment building where there isn't really any like trick or treating. So it would just be weird if I put candy outside my door. It would be.
No, it wouldn't be weird, Zach. It's Halloween. It's normal. You can just look. Surely there's kids that live in your building.
There's certain norms of the, like this, my community that I have to respect, and like that's just not part of. Listen, there's all sorts of Halloween things going on. You might actually hear it on this recording. There are children outside this building partaking in like a Halloween festival
Halloween's
in downtown
exciting,
Concord
man.
right now.
That's great.
So the ambiance will be. You'll all enjoy it.
Is this why you live in an apartment building so you don't have to deal with trick or treaters?
No, that's not why.
Okay.
I would be happy to deal with trick or treaters. It's just
okay. Because you're not like a grumpy like I don't want to see you kids get off my yard kind of situation.
So Halloween is for kids.
Okay.
That's kind of my thesis. Like on Halloween, when adults kind of like use it as an excuse to like.
To party.
I don't know. I now I kind of sound like a grouch, but like I just.
That's okay.
I'm not gonna lie.
His inner Walter Matthau is coming out.
Getting dressed up in a costume. Like it's not my thing. I don't. Like
okay, that's fine. That's fair.
I'll take it there. I'm with Zach, and I'll take it. I'll take it a step further. I hate Halloween. I hate Halloween with a passion. Wow. I can't stand it.
All right. So Ed, you have kids.
I do. I have two kids. Are
you doing Halloween stuff?
Yeah, dude, trick or treating.
Okay.
Cousins walking around the neighborhood, fall leaves. I'm not dressing up, but the kids enjoy it. What are we gonna do it for the children?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's just it's a fun time. It's just joyous fun for the children with a purely satanic holiday for the kids. It doesn't get much better than that. No, it's fun, bro. I'm all in.
It's
maybe I'll put an orange strap on my black watch and get festive with it.
It's a secular holiday, okay? Not a evil holiday. My kid is 10 and he's going again as Lewis Hamilton this year. He's a Lewis Hamilton fan, and I have the shirt that. So I'm going to go as Toto Wolff.
Nice.
So,
Angela. You're not going to put a blonde wig.
I'm not going to go as Angela. My wife might do that, but I've got the shirt that he wears, and the black rim glasses, and I'm going to try and find a black hair wig to go out. So that'll be us, and I'm going to wear some of these. because he sits and he's
Headphones.
following
You're playing
with the headphones.
headphones.
Yeah,
audio
that's
It's an audio. Yeah, I was.
That's right. These things,
Yeah.
and, every time throw them off violently off my head a few times during the night to get the point across. But, no, it'll be fun. Be safe out there if you're getting out. Trick or treating. Don't go over to Zach's house and ring his doorbell if you live in Concord.
Please don't.
He has no candy.
Please don't.
All right, we'll get a full report on next week's podcast about Halloween and how it went. If so,
Oh man, does that
no,
mean we have to
no,
be recording
I'm
our
just
Halloween
kidding.
activities?
I'm just kidding. We'll watch spotting on Halloween night. No, my neighborhood is very popular with Halloween trick or treaters, kids. Steve Buscemi lives in my neighborhood, and
all the neighborhoods that are connected to this one, like Halloween is a big deal around here.
It is, and
really big
so
deal.
last year Buscemi was sitting out on his stoop with Elvis Costello, and he
just
had
a thing
on,
that happens
he
in
had
Brooklyn. It's
just
fine.
normal
Only in
Brooklyn
New York.
stuff.
Yeah.
And, Patrick Stewart lives right across the street from me, but I don't think he's around on Halloween. But Buscemi sits out. Last year he had on his like young kid meme.
Yes.
Where he's got like the skateboard and the red hoodie.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yes, he had that full garb on with the thing, and my kid, I go with like neighborhood kids and all that. They run up there fast and they trick or treat, and of course they don't know who he is or anything like that, so they just. It's not like we bug him or anything like that. I would never like ask for a picture or anything like that. But I noticed the next day, someone on Reddit had taken a picture of him like right after us, and it was like the top voted post on Reddit for like days because
I'd enjoy.
It could have been me. Yeah.
You could have been rich with those internet points, those fake internet points.
Imagine that. Yeah,
It's not
I
too
could
late.
retire from Reddit.
Like to devise a Big Lebowski costume for yourself and for Liam to kind of like get his attention a little bit.
He could be onto something here. Yes, because what if he's there in like Donnie garb this year?
Yeah.
What if he takes a picture with you?
Yeah. Okay.
See, now that's a good idea.
We might have to audible.
Goals.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes on next week's podcast. We'll leave it at that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you showed up to the Windup Watch Fair in New York, thank you so much. It was a huge treat meeting all of you. If not, hopefully we'll get to meet you in San Francisco or Chicago. If you don't live in either of those cities, let us know. We're going to try and do other smaller meetups elsewhere. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care.